Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the West Lindsey series. This is one of the 9 districts of Lincolnshire and one of the county's most rural. It has 128 civil parishes. Let's see which one this episode's all about. It was early in the morning, so perhaps I hadn't woken up properly, but I forgot to do my standard intro piece for this episode. So instead, here's a piece of driving which would otherwise have been cut. We're heading down a narrow country lane here towards East Torrington, a tiny settlement within the larger parish of Legsby. The West Lindsey series is sponsored by Gaines Recycles 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop, located at 20 Ropery Road or online at gainesrecycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gaines Recycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. And this video is also sponsored by Jamie's Fitness Studio, based on Low Road, Grayingham, near Curtin and Lindsey. Jamie is one busy lady. Check her out by calling 07906 749 574 or emailing hello@jamies.co.uk. Online membership is available. There's a link to her Facebook page in the description. Jamie's Fitness Studio. Get fit, get happy, get healthy. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Welcome to Legsby, everybody, a small village located on the edge of the Lincolnshire Wolds, approximately 13 miles from Lincoln and 3 miles from Market Rasen in West Lindsey. The village is a tiny one, but the parish is much larger, covering as it does a handful of other small settlements, namely Bleasby Moor, Collow, East Torrington and Little London. East Torrington used to be its own parish until April 1936, when it was abolished and merged with Legsby, giving us the boundaries we have today. Legsby is a beautiful little village holding only houses, a primary school and lots of open fields and farmland. Its church, dedicated to St Thomas, is an unobtrusive, modest structure with some beautiful headstones in its churchyard. Some of these belong to the Neave family, 19th century landowners and farmers, the descendants of which still work the farmland around the village today. In the Domesday book, Legsby is recorded as Lagesbi, Bleasby was recorded as Belesbi, and also recorded was the now non-existent village of Houten, which we now know as Holtham Garrs. More on that next week. And speaking of non-existent settlements, Legsby Parish has a vast number of earthworks, indicating at one time this was a heavily populated and active area. I suppose with all the rich farmland around here, that makes a lot of sense. Let's see how Legsby's modern population live here today. We start with a drive through Bleasby Moor, a collection of houses and farms mainly on this one long straight road. This is right on the edge of the parish boundary. One of the most notable buildings here would be Bleasby House, once the home of the Neave family, some of whom are buried in the churchyard at Legsby. Although no longer under the Neave name, Bleasby House Farm is still in operation and Neave farmers are still working in the Market Rasen area. Now we're heading for East Torrington, where we'll find a church momentarily. There is a West Torrington as well, and in the 14th century the two were joined together. Nowadays they're separate entities and West Torrington isn't even in West Lindsey. To get between the two we pass over a stream and through the hamlet of Collow, although blink and you'll miss that one. It's a few isolated farm buildings now, but was once a defensive homestead and the site of a 16th or 17th century mill. So small as it might be, East Torrington, it does have a church. Now I believe, I'm not totally sure, this is how you get to the church. You have to go through this farm. The church building is over there behind this tree. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to amble up this drive, because I think this is the way to go. I'm not 100% sure, like I say, and we'll check it out. Obviously I will turn the camera off, because if this turns out to be a private drive and I'm not really allowed up here, I don't want to be filming it, really, do I? So let's see. Dedicated to St Michael, this is the church at East Torrington, situated behind a farmyard well out of the way of anything. It was built between 1848 and 1850 by S.S. Toylon, and it's on the site of a former 14th century medieval building. Although I accessed this by using the farmyard, access is supposed to be gained across the fields to the west. My apologies to the farmers. The church is built of squared ironstone rubble and has some ashlar dressings and a slate roof. Its fittings are all 19th or 20th century. All except the font, that is, a plain octagonal structure which was saved from the original 14th century building. This church seemed to be in a decent condition, but it has had problems in the past with missing stones and some water ingress. Okay, so that's Bleasby Moor and East Torrington. There is another Torrington, West Torrington, but that actually falls over the parish boundary and over the district boundary as well, because that's in East Lindsey. We will cover that in due course. Now we're going to go to Lagesbi itself, and trust me, this is a really small village. Not going to take much walking around. And here we are then in Lagesbi, and you would have seen from the drive-in just how small this place is, because basically that drive-in caught everything. So if there's something I don't film here, you can always rewind the video and have a look at what I caught at the very beginning. I'm at the northernmost end of Legsby village, which is very residential. A couple of houses, bungalows up here, as you can see, typical West Lindsey. That's Park View, that road there. What we're going to do is we're going to follow this road south past the church, and the end point will be the school. At that point we'll turn around and come back. We start our short main walk at Park View, a row of residential properties which just scream West Lindsey at you. Legsby is made up of one main road, lined with sporadically placed housing on either side, some old and some very much new. Here's a bus stop, but as Legsby is in a demand-responsive area, there are no regular services. The 53M calls when it's needed. Beyond the bus stop there's a gap in the hedge and the church appears in the distance. We'll be checking that out in a bit. Other than houses, Legsby has plenty of farms. Here's the entrance to one of them, and this also leads to Legsby House. Historically, Legsby was owned by the Gilbertine Priory at nearby Sixhills. It was later given to the Duke of Suffolk, Charles Brandon. The Legsby estate was later bought by Richard Nelthorpe, and it remained within that family until the early 20th century. There's no amenities like a shop or a post office here. This row of cottages, though, was once the location of the village blacksmith. Beyond the end of the village there was once a Wesleyan Methodist chapel. Bleasby had two others, one Wesleyan and one United Free. At this southernmost point of the village is the only other really notable landmark, the tiny Legsby Primary School. This school would replace an old one which had been in use since 1855. I'll show you where that was located on the way back. So you can see from north to south, Legsby is a very small place. Not the kind of place that you're going to spend hours walking around. I think that's took me about 20 minutes to walk from one end to the other. But of course I did omit the church on the way down. I've saved that for the way back. So let's go and check that out, shall we? On the left-hand side on the way back, you'll pass Legsby Cemetery, which is in fact an extension of the churchyard. Between that and the church, there's a parish notice board, and you know what that means. Tick it off all, 11 to go. Then we come to the church's lit gate. Standing 12.5 feet high, this was built in 1919 and acts as Legsby's war memorial. Legsby's church is dedicated to St Thomas and it's a Grade 2 listed building. Originally this dates from the 13th century. It's built in the early English and Tudor styles and has a chancel, a nave and an obelisk style pinnacle tower containing one bell. Among its most noted features is the east window, the stained glass of which was inserted in memory of a former 19th century vicar. There's also a Norman font, as well as a chalice and a pattern cover dated 1569. There's also a sundial by the front door. Around the back of the church I spotted this building. At first glance this looked like an old chapel or something similar. This was, in fact, Legsby's former school, which the current one replaced. It's made of sandstone rubble and it's Grade 2 listed. It became the village hall, but it appears to not be in use currently if the metal fencing around it is anything to go by. Well, there we are, folks. That's been Legsby, a very small place here in West Lindsey, but a lot of them are, aren't they? That's what we've come to expect from this part of Lincolnshire. And speaking of this part of Lincolnshire, we are familiar with the idea by now, aren't we, of deserted medieval settlements. Well, here in Legsby, there wasn't just one, there was two. Here's today's special section. In fact, there are three. The biggest and most easily recognisable is at Bleasby Moor. These aerial images show just how big the settlement once was. Bleasby was established before the 11th century as the Domesday book records a population of 10 people. That was considered big in those days. By 1563, its population had declined to only 7 households. In 1846, there were only 3 dwellings left, and it was finally abandoned in 1850 when the present Bleasby House was built. The highest part of the remaining earthworks is a moated enclosure approximately 34 metres square, which lies approximately 70 metres southeast of Bleasby House. As for Legsby, this map shows that the current village pretty much sits just on top of its medieval predecessor. Vague patches of earthworks can be seen around the village. The third one is at East Torrington, where a huge patch of earthworks lie to the north of St Michael's Church, between it and the stream that we drove over. To finish with, we're heading for the next one via Little London, Legsby Parish's other small occupied area to the north of the main village. This will take us up onto the Lincolnshire Wolds yet again, and if you like all these medieval remains I keep finding, keep watching. Next week, there's a medieval story to be told. See you later. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.